welcome back inside the cave on this snowy Tuesday morning. And as always, at 7:25 on Tuesdays, we call on Tom Crawford from the Crawford Podcasting Network. And Tom, before we get started, I know you had an incident over the weekend. Your dog Max was very, very ill. And I know if anybody follows Tom on his podcast, you know about this. But Tom, how's Max doing today?
Max is doing great, Pat. I appreciate you asking. Yeah, he had some invasive surgery and had to go back for some follow-up stuff. But he's 9 years old, but the doctor says, man, he's a strong dog, so he's doing great. And so it was, and that we got to bring him home on Saturday afternoon, right after Michigan beat Ohio State. So it was a glorious Saturday afternoon for me.
Absolutely. Well, Tom, you know, as you said, Michigan and Ohio State, probably one of the biggest upsets in this Michigan-Ohio State rivalry.
Yeah, I was as a 13-year-old, I sat in Michigan Stadium in 1969 when they were like 18, 19-point favorites. And they beat Ohio State, but that was a home game. And this was different. This reminded me of sitting there in 1996 when I went down to Columbus, and Michigan was a significant underdog to a number 2 team in the nation, the Ohio State Buckeyes, when John Cooper was still coaching. And Michigan won that game 13-9. So it was you just got to get these cats thinking. You know what? The biggest takeaway how this was progressing quickly was how fast the first quarter went, and it was still 0-0, and I'm thinking, or 3-0, whatever it was when Ohio State. The game got shrunk down. It went rapidly. Michigan was able to, their defense, that front four, the whole front seven was absolutely terrific, as we know. And, man, you just hang around the chicken coop, and then you go get the chicken at the end, because Ohio State started thinking, and you could tell that stadium was nervously quiet.
You know, Tom, John Roberts here this morning. You mentioned the 95-96 games, and I think a lot of people that have been Michigan fans for a long time thought about those games. And as this one was unfolding, I thought to myself, this is the biggest win in Columbus, I think, that I've seen. And I thought about that game. But they had won it, I believe, in 95 in Ann Arbor when it was a pretty significant upset. And then to do it again in 96 in Columbus, this kind of came out of nowhere, in my opinion. I don't think a lot of people, even some of the most diehard Michigan fans, thought, yeah, if we can just keep it close and be respectable, we'll be happy.
Yeah, I think I said last week, got to be +3 in turnovers just to make it a fourth quarter game, and it ended up being 2-2 on turnovers. Michigan got the initial turnovers and got Amir Hall's pick down to the 1 was huge, and just make a place. You're right. I agree with you, John, that winning down in Columbus is at another level. I mean, in a rivalry, in my opinion, Michigan, Ohio State, protecting home field is not that huge of an accomplishment relative to going into the opposing team's field. And, this, and I have friends that were there, I have media friends that were there. This was toxic level. And it was toxic level in 96. I just remember walking down Lane Avenue, I go, these people are different. These people are really, really different when it comes to this rivalry. It means too much to them. I mean, when you take the entire campus and block out all the M's off the campus, there's no signs you can have an M on it. I mean, that's a little sick. And when Ryan Day at his presser on the Monday prior was he not totally equating, but close to equating, the sadness of losing Michigan is right up there with his dad's funeral. That feeling, that's at psychotic level. And when you get to that level in your minds and you're seeing this thing slip away, I can't help but think that's a detriment to how you execute on the football field, including being a kicker and everybody else.
Yeah, it seemed like it was more about losing to Michigan than the actual game itself.
Yeah, I think so. I don't understand the state of Ohio in a lot of regards. It's got incredible high school football, but I've talked to some Ohio State people say goes back decades. They said, because even if you didn't go to Ohio State, you went to Bowling Green, went to Miami of Ohio. You're a Buckeye fan. It is like the college football school of the entire state, and they equated the need to win at Ohio State. They blame it on the Cleveland Browns. They really do. They have an NFL team, or they didn't even talk about the Bengals, even though they've been to the Super Bowl. But it's the Browns was the logo of football, or back in the 50s and 60s, but and when Jim Brown and everybody. But the fact that they haven't given the Super Bowl, I mean, basically the Ohio State Buckeyes is their de facto NFL team, and their behavior as NFL type fans, if you know what I mean, and matches that. It's clearly defined how they act, and man, there were some devastated Ohio State people after this game.
There's no question about it. And, of course, the unfortunate incident at the end of the game when Michigan planted the flag in the middle of the giant O at Ohio Stadium. A fight broke out, and, I thought Khalil Mullings really was very articulate in his interview on the air, said these people need to learn how to lose.
Well, I mean, this has been all rehashed the last couple of days. I mean, Baker Mayfield plants that flag in Columbus, and there's no fight. They're heading out. Maybe they didn't see it. I mean, Michigan. I was in Michigan State. Before I go down the presser, or I stop at I go down the stairs, and I kind of see the reaction of the crowd at level 3, and I look out there, and Texas is planting a flag at the block M, and this is the hypocrisy. Steve Sarkisian jumps on board and says, "No, we were going to plant the flag at A&M." Well, you did it in Ann Arbor on September 7th. What an absolute hypocrite! Oregon did it. Oregon's doing backflips on the block M.
Yeah.
After they beat Michigan, and we've seen fights all over college football with planting a flag. Maybe it's not right, but the fact that Gus Johnson pinned that on Michigan. I mean, that little 130-pound turd. I mean, my God. I mean, forget it. I mean, what are you saying? It was Ohio State was throwing the punches. And, yeah, I understand why they came out fighting. I understand the other thing. That's kind of college football. But, it's to have this, it's seemingly always Michigan, even the Michigan State people in the tunnel incident. I mean, even though their player was openly slamming his helmet against a Michigan player's head, didn't have a helmet on, and then Michigan is the culprit in this thing. I just don't get it. I guess it is Michigan versus everybody, Michigan versus the haters, and I guess that's the way it is.
Well, let's switch our subject to another bright area, Michigan basketball. Of course, they're coming off a big win over Xavier, 78-53 in the tournament down in Florida at Fort Myers. And Tom, I know you've mentioned several times on our show that the real test for Michigan is going to come up against Wisconsin. That's coming up tonight.
Yeah, that's a big one on the road, and that will be tough. They got then they have their Big Ten home opener 1:00 Saturday in Ann Arbor, and I'm sure that will be a sellout because everybody's bullish on this basketball team. That 25-point win against Xavier got my attention even more in a good way. Xavier's a good team. They're always a good team, and they were ranked in the top 25 at the time. And what Danny Wolf did, the way he can handle basketball as a big man is impressive. I'm telling you what, he had 20 points. Vlad Golden, the other big man, the center, had 18. And then you have Trey Donaldson, the point guard, who seemingly is becoming the alpha dog leader on this team. He had 13. That was a huge win. So, yeah, I mean, if this is a great game tonight, you're going to learn a lot more. And then we're going to learn about in these neutral site games in December against Arkansas that they play in the Jimmy V Classic, which I think is coming up at MSG, and then Oklahoma at the Jumpman thing in Charlotte. Two good teams. Oklahoma had a big win. Arkansas is a good team. We're going to find out in the next couple of weeks, but we're starting to find out right now that clearly this is an NC2A team. It's well coached. It's very deep. It's a solid 10 deep team.
Well, my impression of the game against Xavier was that this was a total team effort. I mean, everybody got in the act.
Yeah, and this is what Dusty has told us multiple times is, guys, you're going to see different people stepping up. Roddy Gale was really big in the win over Vatech, and he had only 6 points in this game, but he does other things. He gets assists, and he defends very well, and he's good in transition. But, yeah, it's going to be the flavor of the game. Who's going to step up and score points? And it was the two big men this time. Next time it might be maybe the 2 and the 3 guy. Who knows? But I like this team. I like Will Cheddar as kind of the glue guy, number 42, the 3-year guy who's held on to this team and just he's fiery when he's sitting on the bench. He's fiery when he's on the floor, and it's got a lot of ingredients to this team, including being well coached.
Well, I know we talked about turnovers. That was one of their Achilles' heel starting out the season. They seem to have cleaned that up a little bit.
Yeah, and that's the nature of when you've got 11 new players, and most of them haven't played together, and you're a push kind of team. I mean, Michigan likes to push the basketball. Maybe not the level of Michigan State, but they do. And Danny Wolf, he commits turnovers. He puts himself in situations, but you have to, in order to make plays, there is some diciness to it, but you got to clean up the sloppy ones. Those one-hand push passes have been driving everybody crazy. So I think Dusty's been emphasizing that. But Wisconsin tonight, very, very, very physical, very large, hostile crowd. I mean, Wisconsin fans are going to be thirsty for basketball since their football season went belly up. So it's all about perspective, right?
Yeah, and as you mentioned, Tom, the Kohl Center, always a tough place to play. Wisconsin loves to, play great defense and be physical. And I think they are okay if the game is not a high-scoring game.
Yeah, and I think Michigan is going to be one of those teams that can win games in different ways. I mean, they've had a lot of high-scoring games, but it's still so early to tell how good this team's going to be. I think they're going to be good, but I mean, or what their identity is. And this is what Dusty said. We're not even going to know what that term. What's your identity? Are you a physical team? They're using football and they use it in basketball. Are you a running team? Are you a passing team? Or in basketball, are you a push team? Are you a half-court team? Or are you a gritty team? And like I said, with that schedule, we're going to find out.
Well, I know you said Iowa will be the home opener for the Big Ten season at Michigan, 2:00 tip. They're 6-1 coming in, and the Big Ten going to be a gauntlet this year.
Yeah, the Big Ten is going to be a gauntlet, Pat, very, very much so. And I don't think there's not a juggernaut team. I mean, Purdue isn't, going to be that dominant team. I mean, there's a lot of teams that'll probably be ranked, in the 11 to 20 range throughout the season, but not one real tough team because they're going to be knocking each other off. Michigan State got my attention this week. They seemingly struggle early on at home against teams like Bowling Green, like teams that should be smashing. Has a Ken Palm rating in the 200s, and that game went kind of down to the last 5 minutes. But when they went to Maui, and they played Kansas tough earlier in the year, but when they went to Maui, that got my attention. I mean, they handled Colorado without hesitation. They let the Memphis game slip away, game 2, but how they beat North Carolina in overtime. They had the lead. They surrendered it down the stretch. But they recovered, and they didn't have one of their best player, Jace Richardson, who was the freshman, Jason Richardson's kid. So that team's going to be good. And so I really think this is going to be a fun Big Ten season to watch. And the best thing about Michigan is Michigan fans are going to feel good about their coach. They're going to feel good about the future. They got a great recruit, and Trey McKinney coming in next year, so it's all positive for Michigan basketball right now.